Hello from all of us here at Reservoir Red Dogs. Don't forget you can email the show, rrd1865@outlook.com. You can tweet the show at rrd1865. Subscribe, spread the word, leave a review, and as many Forest fans as possible can find the show and enjoy it. Thank you very much for all your wonderful messages over Twitter and over email. It's wonderful to make something that so many Forest fans love and enjoy. So thank you very much for all your support. Johnny Owen. Johnny, hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
Johnny is co-presenting the show today because our guest today is hero of the show, Forest legend, Paul McGregor. It's the Macca special.
Yeah.
Paul, welcome to the show as a guest.
It's extremely intimidating. Well, you're going to have to work for once, aren't you? Because I've got about 4 stories, and we've said them all. So you're going to have to draw something out of me.
Well, you know what I was going to ask you, because you're a Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
But you've got a broad Nottingham accent. So at what point, because you grew up in Nottingham, but did you ever have any time in Liverpool as a kid?
I was there for 3 years, yeah. And then my dad burnt the house down with a chip pan.
Accidentally?
Yeah. And so he had a cousin in Stapleford. In Stabbo, who owns a shop. And we came down, and that amongst other things, my dad had to get out of Liverpool for several reasons.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah, it's brilliant. But that is a pub story. It's not one for the podcast.
We should. I've always wondered whether we should do a kind of.
Well, I've met your dad, and he's a proper Scouser, isn't he? He's the real deal, isn't he?
Yeah, 60s, brutal boy, like grew up down the docks. He's like, his streets are through the roof. Like, he's my hero. I love him to bits. He's the best person to go for a pint with.
He's
ever.
a brilliant bloke. I just wondered.
And a toffee, which is interesting.
He is a toffee, yeah.
But you're not.
No.
Is that a rebellion?
Well, I grew up in the 80s.
Yeah.
And Liverpool winning everything. So.
And Forest, well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's
right. Not throughout the 80s.
Yeah. I've always just thought myself, other than Macca, obviously was born a Scouser, I understand that his parents were Scousers. Anybody from Nottingham was supported Liverpool in the 80s, you'd thinking, mate, you got it on your doorstep.
Man.
I know. When I first moved to Nottingham, I had a landlord, and he was a bit of an oddball. And he said to me, you're the chap that did the film. I was like, yeah. And he went, I was always a Liverpool fan. And I was born in Nottingham. And I remember Vicky said, my face changed. I was like, well, I'm not having you, pal. I mean, like, come on. Do you know what I mean? If you're born and bred in Nottingham, and you're in the 60s and then the 70s, and you're still supporting Liverpool, it's like, come on.
Weird.
That's exactly it. Weird.
Bad judgment.
Yeah, listen, Liverpool, fantastic football club, great football club. But if you're from Manchester or Nottingham as was, surely you're supporting Forest and United.
Yeah. I think it's a real character thing that people don't understand what football is about. The name of the city or the town in the name of the football club is the Clough. Yeah. It's for Nottingham people, Nottingham Forest. It's for now. Obviously, we have fans all over the world as a result of our wonderful exploits, and that's a great. So it's different for Forest because we're cool. But anyone else who supports a football club where they're not from, I don't trust them. I don't trust them one bit.
I'm with you, mate. I'm with you.
I grew up supporting Merthyr and Cardiff, and this is the truth. Nottingham Forest were a bit like Barcelona and Real Madrid. They won European Cups. The thought of them of Cardiff doing anything like that would have been ridiculous to us. So if you're from the city during that era and picking somebody else, come on, pal.
Weirdos. Yeah. So you get involved in Forest from a very young age. So how were you first spotted by the club?
Well, growing up playing for like Clifton Allwhites and Pheasant Colts and South Notts, etc. They'll have always been around, and we were always aware that scouts are coming to the games. So. But I actually went to Notts County's School of Excellence first, where Jimmy Cyril was.
Wow, another big Nottingham legend as well.
Yeah.
Footballing.
So he was taking the School of Excellence. Like 15-year-old kids, 14-year-old kids, 13-year-old kids. So he would do it himself.
Wow,
which was amazing.
So you go to County first, and then Forest. That puts you on Forest's radar at that point, does it?
Well, I think I was on both Forest and County's radar, but there was School of Excellences in those days, so I'd do the Forest one, and you could do the County one as well. The clubs didn't really have a grip of.
Somebody once said to me, you were one of those kids at right through from 8, 9, 10, your friends said you would literally score 3 or 4 goals every time you played a match, didn't you?
Yeah.
So do you know, even when you're 7, 8, that you're lots better than everybody else?
It was a strange one for me because when my dad first got here, he was telling everybody that his son played, and I can remember him walking me into the Red Cow in Lenton and asking people, just walking around the pub, holding my hand, asking people,
what
who's the best team to play for? My lad can do a bit. Who's the best team to play for?
How old are you then? Or what sort of age?
I'd have been 7, 8.
So he spotted it, didn't he? We've had this chat before, where somebody must spot something in a player. I was saying Mark Pembridge and Merthyr, where he was just streets ahead of everybody else instantly. And my grandfather went to me, he can play, he can make it. Your dad would have had that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going through it a bit with my business partner's lad. He's just been taken on by Forest, but
wow,
you know, his name's Noah Johnson, by the way. Hi Noah, Scott. He's just getting to that point where, you know, there's something a bit special, you know, and people are starting to see that. But for me, I got put into Clough Norwhite's a year below and started scoring goals straight away. But I just had the only thing that was in my head. I mean, I can feel it now. You know, you can draw on it. I just had this absolute burning desire. Desire doesn't do it a service. You know, I can draw on it at any moment.
Like a vocational drive.
Yeah, to score goals, do nothing else. There were better players than me. You know, we had, you know, Mickey Galloway ended up at Notts County, and there was a lad called Neil Glasser that was phenomenal. He was England captain, all kinds of stuff. He was at Forest in the youth team and everything. Growing up playing with Vance and Lee Marshall, who ended up being at Forest, and so on and so forth. Spuggy as well.
I love Spuggy.
But there were better technical footballers, but it was just in my brain, just score the goal. My dad would always be like that, you know, it'd be your name on the back page of the paper. So after every weekend, you know, you play Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning, and you go and get all the papers, the Derby papers, because you're playing for like Little Overdazzlers or Sandiaka Town or something. And you know, if my name wasn't in headlines every week, I was broken, absolutely broken.
So it's almost like it's in a burning desire. And this is interesting to me because everything you read about Clough, for argument's sake, and everything all the boys like Rob will talk about was he was a natural goal scorer. And John O'Hare said the other week something quite interesting. He said he wasn't technically superb, but he said he just knew how to score goals. Yeah. And I always remember Rob was saying to me, Cloughie loved goal scorers more than anybody else. He loved it. And when you got to about 13, 14, you started coming to Forest, and I don't want to embarrass you since, but everybody says, Cloughie, you were his favourite by far and away, when he Blondie, as he called you. But he just loved you because you were desperate to score goals. And to him, that was arguably the most important person on the pitch, really.
Yeah, I think he saw that in me, you know, and it wasn't particularly off the bat that I scored goals. So my first year in the youth team, you enter what you see as this sort of hierarchy system. You know, you've got two centre forwards in front of you that are scoring goals because they're the best at their age. You're a year below them, so you come in, you're fully aware that you're going to have to bide your time. So whenever I'd break into that side, it would be as a forward now and again, on the right wing, on the left wing, so on and so forth. So I sort of bided my time in there. But the second, I scored a few goals, but I mean, the second we were the year twos YTS, that was it, you know, 49 goals in 51 games.
My God.
I had a great side around me, and I always mention Lee Marshall when we did this. Marshy, I was up front with Marshy. He scored about 35 goals that season.
My God.
And Brian Clough said he was the best holder of a ball. Bearing in mind, Nigel, he said Lee Marshall was the best holder up of a ball he'd ever seen in his life.
So you're in this youth setup, but Clough's got an eye for you. How weird is it being young and not in the first team and having a manager like Brian Clough with the first team that he had, but you've really caught his eye, and to have that different relationship with him maybe than other players had?
I guess that developed more in the background because if you're a goal scorer, and you know, I've said it a few times, if you're a goal scorer, you didn't have to train particularly. So we had John Perkins, who's recently passed away, incredible guy, you know, was brilliant for the youth team, nurtured so many great players coming through. So, you know, we'd be the sort of the rats, you know, we'd be running around, picking up slips, cleaning boots, doing all that kind of stuff, and training really, really hard. We're the first ones on the training ground, last ones off it, cleaning it all up, getting back, getting scrubbed up and everything. But quite often, you know, I'd get the call to walk the dog, and that was my job, you know, just walk the dog.
Del boy?
Yeah.
And how long would you have to
Don't bring him back till he's done his business. So that was me. And I, you know, John Perkins used to look over and like with just daggers. Just I was walking a dog and like he's training all the lads, and he hated me being separated from the team, and I understood that, and I felt embarrassed about it. But at the same time, I was 9 feet tall.
Sorry, I was just about to say it's because what's interesting for me is I'm 47 now, right? So I'm
You look good on
getting
it,
on.
mate.
Thank you.
You look really good.
Moisturiser.
Gorgeous.
Great skin.
But what's interesting to me is it's hard to explain to somebody under the age of 35 how big Nottingham Forest were. So there was basically the biggest teams in the country were Liverpool, Nottingham Forest, and then Manchester United. Arsenal and Tottenham, you'd get, but Forest. For a young player to be brought into the Forest setup, they probably wouldn't, even as a Liverpool fan, there probably wouldn't be anywhere else you'd want to go other than Nottingham Forest under Brian Clough, really, would it? So what I'm saying is you must have been, they got the best of the best at Forest as well, didn't they?
They really did, yeah. I mean, there's a Scottish team called I don't know if they still exist. Scottish team called Parkhead that were the Glasgow feeder teams. There was the
Wallsend, isn't it, in the northeast?
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
There was Senrab from London that used to, John Terry played there. They were the London teams. So, and there was us Pheasant Colts who from the Midlands, and one of those teams would win all the European tournament, wherever you would go, and UK tournament, we'd win our league, doubles, everything. So, just having, you knew in those club sides you were the best of the best. So when you were going into Forest, that was the level, that was the level you were playing at regularly at that time. They don't really have that so much these days. Clubs get hold of kids, academies, early doors, but coming out of school and having your first manager, your first gaffer at work be Brian Clough.
Man,
that is
it's surreal.
Absolute baptism of fire, yeah.
And to be his favourite as well. So he knows you.
Well, but you get courted as well it previously. So going back to your question, we would be getting asked by, we would have Man United trials and Everton trials, Tottenham trials, and you'd be getting asked.
Liverpool?
No, but...
How come?
Well, I don't know. I mean, my dad's dad, my granddad, only saw me play football twice. One was at Melwood, because my family are up there, and one was at Goodison for the first team.
Yeah.
But
Great.
The one at Melwood, we beat Liverpool 4-1, and we beat Liverpool 3-1, and I scored every goal. So I scored an own goal first. Robbie Fowler was playing, and then scored a hat-trick up the other end. And I can remember Sammy Lee. My granddad went and stood near Sammy Lee, and Sammy Lee was going on, how do we not know this kid? Can we get hold of this kid? Who's this guy? He's from Liverpool. So they were just off the radar because I wasn't from there. They've got such a rich source of footballing talent up there.
Of course. Yeah. Did you ever want to play for Liverpool? I know that sounds like a silly question.
Of course, yeah.
And was that always in the back of your mind? You're like, one day, actually, even when you're sort of conquering Europe with Forest, was there part of you thinking, I could go to Liverpool?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, that dream was always there. I mean, one of the greatest days of my life was walking out for Forest at Anfield. I got told, Frank Clark told me an hour before that I was in the starting lineup. We were on the bus and got called up. I always want to go and do a Frank impression.
Go on, do it. No, because I was going to do it.
No, you can do it.
It's an absolute
Macca, yeah, the thigh, I'll put you on the team sheet. I think you better play up front.
He might be out for a pint later. I'll get a slap. Sorry, boss.
He's got to be the most impersonal. I mean, Clough and Clark have to be like the two most. Maybe Pierce.
Them two, yeah. But
Clark
he's
and
loved, and he's not like he's
was done with a great deal of affection.
It is,
yeah.
Mine is. So
he called me up.
Yeah,
called me up the front
brilliant.
end of the bus because the bus was separated, players and coaches end. So I went up and got told, and then sat on the toilet for half an hour on the drive in, just like.
A chemical toilet on a 1990s coach. Not a pleasant place to be.
No, I do find those chemicals, the smell of those chemicals, quite calming though.
Is that because you associate it? Is that like a Pavlovian thing?
Yeah, it's from years of hugging a bowl, having been drunk.
I thought you
and those are the only
with...
things that are so pungent that can wake you up and sober you up. I think anyway.
But that must have been amazing to play at Anfield as a boy from Liverpool. Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, I was the only Forest player to touch the Anfield sign. I waited because I didn't want Piercy. I didn't want anyone to see me touch the sign, obviously. So I went to the back of the line, and there was Fowler and McManaman at the back. And now it's a funny thing because Fowler had been stratospheric in terms of his goal scoring. Kind of became a little bit of a hero. He's same age, but when you're a fan of a club, I was still like, oh my, this kid, he's unbelievable. You sort of take yourself out of it. But when I touched it, a pair of them tapped me on the back. And I have to say, I was talking to Spuggy about this the other week when he was on. I honestly think the first 45 minutes were the best 45 minutes I've ever played in my life.
Wow.
I'll never. I mean, I tore their left back to shreds. I set up both goals. We went 2-0 up.
Wow.
Woney, Stoney, and
Cuthbert Dibble-Dub.
I think Fowler scored a couple, and then Stan came on. And I think Stan got a couple as well. But I came off about 15 minutes into the second half with cramp. I mean, I was like you when you meet a Forest player. I was just.
I can't control
running
myself.
around. Yeah, you can't.
And it sounds weird because we are mates, but like, I always said to my girlfriend, I can't believe I know Paul McGregor. Like, you have to know that it's not just any old mate. I used to watch him play football. It's mind-blowing. And like, when all the guests we've had in, like David Johnson and Craig, every single one, Reedy, like, I can't believe I'm sat in a room talking to them.
David Johnson. You know David Johnson then?
David Johnson. What a guy. If only he was here now, I'd tell him how I really feel. I don't think players have any, and I think you do actually because the way you're talking about Robbie Fowler, but I think a lot of players, obviously it's a job, have no idea how special it is. When we went to watch, what Forest game was it? Sheffield Wednesday earlier in the season. We sat in the Lower Bridgeford and it was like...
Gets mobbed. He's one of those cult heroes.
I don't know if he was going, Paul McGregor's here. He's at the Bridgeford end. He's scored that goal.
Colin Barrett's another. Do you know, I watched the Bobby Robson film the other day.
Oh,
and,
man,
is it good?
She says a great thing, his wife. She goes, what attracted to him? She went, well, they just walk a certain way, footballers. And I was thinking... She's bang on there. She said they walk a certain way. You do.
That's funny. My mate says that. A friend of mine called Susie. Her dad was a footballer. He played for Notts County, and she's always quite been partial to footballers. And I always ask her why, but she's never gone out with one.
No.
And I always ask her why. She's just always fancied football. She just they just walk a certain way. There's a gate.
There's a gate. That's
there
the
is,
word.
and you look your best as well.
Do you know I was doing Soccer AM with Gary Birtles when the film came on? You know, at the end they'd have you to take a penalty. I still haven't going to kick the ball into the hole or whatever. I still haven't got one in yet. Anyway, Birtles goes up and Birtles says, I'll never forget it, I haven't kicked the ball for 15 years. That's what he said to me. And you could see he meant it. So they went, well, just take a shot, Gary. And he was the one, remember the big German goalkeeper thing? Anyway, he went up, well, he put his foot through this ball. I've never seen anything like it. And he hit the goalkeeper's hand and bent the hand back. So he nearly broke the hand, and it still went in. And afterwards, they were telling me they kept the hand they bent in,
in honour.
Salute in honour to Gary Birtles' left foot. But it was just the way he just still went up, and he went. I just thought to myself, I'll never be able to hit a football like that ever, as long as I live. But he just put everything, the way his body went, smash.
I'm sure I told this story before, but I used to go and watch the Forest team train a lot down at Lady Bay in the Clark era. My mum would always take me and my sister, like the kids, off the street. You'd just be allowed. It was incredible. Stuart Pearce would take free kicks over you and all that. The access we got to the club at that point was insane as fans. And then a few years later, during the Bassett era, when Van Hooydonk, with that amazing promotion season, and they weren't at the training ground. So me and my mate walked back to the club and they said, "Oh, they're training on the pitch today." So we watched, and this one I had this argument with Steve Chettle that he doesn't.
I remember that day vividly. I'd completely forgotten, and then when you said it, this thing just went, "Oh yeah, I remember it." It was a really sunny day, wasn't it?
It was so hot.
Yeah.
But Pierre Van Hooydonk at one point says, "Oh, go in goal and I'll take some free kicks." I remember heading one off the line. And I still think to this day there is damage done to my body.
I would agree
from
with
that.
you, yeah.
The pace at which the ball
force
moves.
of the ball.
Oh my God.
Did you see John Hartson was on Football Focus the other day, and they said to him, who was the best crosser of the ball you've ever played with? And he went, it's not somebody I played with. He said he was a coach. He was a little Scottish guy called John Robertson. He said, who used my coach at Celtic.
Yes.
He said he was in his 50s and he said he had 2 bandaged up knees. And he said one day, he said to them, I'll show you to stick a ball in. And they all kind of laughed. And he said he put every single ball right on the end of my head.
Wow.
5-6 times he went. He said, I'd never seen anything like it. And he kind of like trotted off. He said to have a cigarette somewhere. But I just love the fact, like, you can still, like an old boxer, you can still pull it out of the bag if you have to. Do you know what I mean? I'll just show you what to do, boys. And everybody else goes, wow.
Well,
brilliant.
You don't notice it when you come away from the game. I've played in a few charity matches recently over the past kind of 6 months.
I've played a charity match in Macca. It was hilarious. They hate losing as well. I think for ex-footballers.
I got a bit of a telling off there because I was effing and blinding, wasn't I?
Shouted up. We had the telling off, and he was quite right as well. Well, we were playing. Did really well. We had a good team. Macca was obviously, and we got to the semi-final, and we lost 2-1, and they scored like an injury time. Anyway, and we thought the match was over, but they kicked back off because there was a few extra seconds. Yeah. We were all trooping off. Of course, Mac is still on the pitch, throws himself heroically, clears the ball, turns around and says to us, "You're a f***ing disgrace, you lot. The match is still being fucking played. You don't finish till the fucking whistle's gone. And we all went, sorry, Mac.
What? Was that panto? Was that genuine name?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
he
it
meant it.
Wow.
We were like, okay, sorry. We had to go back on because of him. And the referee went, and they went, and he went, right, we can leave now.
Chuntering off on my own.
Legend. I love that.
In the pub later, he was a bit like, oh, I'm sorry, boys. We were like, no, it was great. I
Love the intensity of it. Is that? Do you find that in other areas of life, or is that only when you're involved in football?
No, I've
Still got washing up to do, yeah.
No, I've got it. I mean, the band was sort of Ulterior was sort of an extension of that as well. I mean, me and my brother used to often joke that we should wear shin pads when we went on stage. It was proper football mentality. It was at the crowd as opposed to, hey guys, come on, let's let's vibe out and go to and play Glastonbury. We'd have been the worst band ever at Glastonbury. It was just right between the eyes of people, and there was that. It was like walking onto a pitch.
Great.
There was that mentality of it. Growing up with Oasis and all that, I saw that in their eyes as well.
Definitely.
And that's how I attacked making music as well. So I think it was definitely. I mean, and I've just remembered as well that the thing. Just to digress very slightly, I've done some training with some kids before in schools. I've been asked to go into schools and do some talks and do some football training and stuff. And sometimes you see some kids that, they're not getting the breakfast in the morning, that and you think, not got a chance, this kid, and everything. Yeah. And you end up having a chat with them. I remember a supply teacher asking me, can you explain what it is that motivates, and I had a real think about it. And then my dad hates this story, but I would always tell this story to kids that I can remember being under the table in Liverpool. We always used to go back up to Liverpool to family dues and everything. It was we used to have loads back then, street parties and everything. It was great. I can't remember what party it was, but me and my cousin were walking underneath the tables. The tables were dressed and we're walking. No one knew. Tying people's laces together, and I saw my dad's shoes, and I went up, and me and my cousin were sat there, and I could hear my dad talking, and he was talking to my uncle Tommy, and my uncle Tommy was like, "You can play a bit, can't he?" My dad said. And I'll never forget it, and this is the thing that carry with me. My dad said, yeah, he's all right. He wouldn't make it up here. He's not good enough. And that feeling I can draw on now. I mean, my hairs are standing up, telling you.
Wow.
And that was like, and I explained this to these kids, that was like this golden nugget, this pain that went into my chest, because I was embarrassed, number one. I can't stand being embarrassed. Despite how I dress. But that pain went in and hardened, and it was this I always describe it as this little golden thing that I can draw on at any given moment. That's that extra bit, that's that determination, that's that thing. And my dad gave me that, and he hates the fact, because my dad was there when it was raining, snowing, all that. So we did all the great graft. The best thing he ever did was something he didn't know, and it's negative. And it turned me from possibly being a decent goal scorer into someone that give me the ball in the last minute, it's going in the back of the net.
But it says so much about your strength of character and about your inherent personality and your traits that you see that as a positive. Because a lot of kids hearing that would have buried them. But your natural instinct actually was to use that as a motivating force.
I'm not in control of that, so I'm lucky. I'm lucky in that. So that's not my great character going, hey guys, I'll turn this into something. It's it's not all LA. This is Liverpool. LA. This is Bootle in the 80s.
You can play that.
Bootle in the 80s, la. So I was lucky. That was just my makeup did that, and that just happened. I got embarrassed. I internalized it and turned it into something.
Became a Premier
positive.
League footballer.
So that's what I would say to the kids, because I could see kids having rough times at home and all that kind of stuff, and it's kind of take all that. It's usable if you can just grab hold of it and turn it into something, just turn it into a little bit of fight, really.
It's amazing how many footballers will have the best part of their career, and I can name so many who've come on this podcast, just after they have fallen out with the manager and on the sidelines. And it's pretty much always another manager will come in and they will use what happened just before to make them into a better player. Amazing. Yeah. I can literally name about 4 or 5 who've mentioned the fact that previous manager had frozen me out, I wasn't really enjoying it. So-and-so come in, new lease of life, and I really wanted to prove myself then.
Oh, I agree. I mean, my career at Forest went like this, and then I did my knee. And then we had several managers, and then I was on loan here and on loan there. Before I knew it, found myself At Plymouth, I got kick after kick after kick after kick for 6-7 months, and trying to stay positive as a young lad and all that. But I was lucky enough to have that thing that then, and a lot of footballers have got it. You don't get there there are better players more often than not. It's something inside you that achieves above and beyond what you should possibly or could possibly just on talent alone. And went to Plymouth and scored a load of goals and Player of the Year and all that there. So that was drawing on it again, and just not collapsing really.
Yeah.
Your time at Forest really is defined by the amazing season that Forest had. We got to the quarterfinals of the UEFA Cup, and of course we talked about this so often: the goal against Lyon, the goal against United, the goal against Sheffield Wednesday. That side was brimming full of characters, and occasionally on YouTube people have found that great video of Stuart Pearce taking a camera crew around the dressing room and giving people's nicknames. Oh yeah, that's Gimp, whatever it was. I mean, one of your nicknames at the time. I mean, it wasn't just Brian Clough that was there, was it? There were huge personalities in the dressing room as well. Like, in terms of, give us an assessment of some of the players in there. Like, who were the funny ones? Who were the hard ones? Who did you get on with?
You wouldn't have wanted to be, from what I hear the story, a young player with Ian Wone in the dressing room.
No, Woney was harsh, but if he liked you,
you were all right.
You were all right.
But
I was a Scouser, so I think I had a little bit of an
If you came through the other end, fantastic. But like a few people said, he had edge, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he could kill a young player, fully kill a young player in a park for months just with a comment.
We should say Ian listens to the show.
That's all right. No,
Hi, Ian. We would love to have you on.
I'm looking forward to having him. No, I'm just saying
That'd be amazing,
people have said he was... They all got
big personality.
Tank said it.
I mean, the one that he did with me that knocked me for a couple of weeks, confidence-wise, was because I was fast and so desperate to score. He'd always shout over, and I'll take him off fast forwards.
In terms of your friends, Scott Gemmell was and still is, probably your best mate in that Forest side. Would you take him along to gigs and things?
Oh, me and Scotty would go everywhere, yeah. We used to go to...
Would he go, oh, bloody hell, I don't want to go and see these weird bands?
Scott loves weird bands. So every summer, the second the season finished, we would book a flight out to New York.
Yes.
And we'd make sure we'd go and see Primal Scream in New York or The Verve in New York.
Wow. And did you get to know those bands?
No.
So no guest list backstage stuff?
That we did, not those guys, but later on when I was around the music scene and not football, then yeah, but not whilst we were such fanboys though.
That's cool.
Do you remember being watching? What's the venue?
Radio City?
No, in New York somewhere. Anyway, Smashing Pumpkins supported the Verve on a Northern Soul tour, and we were on the balcony. We managed to get Scott knew Alan McGee, so. Cool. We got VIP up the top, and Helena Christensen was up there, Naomi Campbell, Claudia Schiffer, Kate Moss, Christy Turlington, me and Scott. So we were just like, whoa, pretty cool, So, but yeah, we did that. We did that every summer. Just would follow bands, and then afterwards the bands would come up, and we'd know where they were, what hotels, what bars they were going to. And we'd just stand on the other side of the room, just looking over, going, "Isn't Rich Ashcroft cool?"
But imagine being a Forest fan on holiday in New York and going, "Oh, there's a British band, and we're going to see the Verve," and then going, "I think I've just seen Paul McGregor and Scott Gemmell at the bar."
I'm not sure that happened.
I reckon you'll have got spotted once or
reckon?
twice. Of course. No, maybe not. Well, we had a lot of, in anticipation of the Macca special, a lot of people sent us this article, and I know you've already seen it, on the BBC recently. 8 music stars who are also outstanding athletes, and rightly so. You're one of them. And this is what it says. Paul McGregor, singer of Ulterior, who once toured with the Sisters of Mercy, used to play for Nottingham Forest. Strange but true. He came up through the youth system at the club, made the first team, scored a wonder goal against Sheffield Wednesday. How on earth have they written an article about Paul McGregor? Of all the goals you scored, how is that the one they're talking about, not Lyon or United?
It's very bizarre how people remember you, isn't it?
But that's so cool. So when you see that, when you sort of thrust back into the limelight, I mean, did they tell you, did the BBC get in touch and say, oh, by the way, you're on this list? Or is it just mates texting you?
Yeah, did the BBC text you when you're on the BBC?
I don't know. I wondered maybe if the journalist had got in touch and said, "Oh, I'm writing an article about this sort of thing."
I got just a few texts coming through. Oh, you're on the BBC website this morning. But stuff like that happens once or twice a year. You know, the old footballers that wanted to be rock stars.
Or cult footballers, it says.
Yeah.
You were really high up on that list a few months ago.
Sexy footballers.
So it was something like footballers who were,
wore eyeliner.
rock star footballers, really, wasn't it? Like Best was in there and a few like that. But you were 7 or 8 in that.
It depends because, like, for example, somebody took it upon themselves to write my Wikipedia page. I don't know if you've ever looked. I looked at it once and got so angry.
Oh, God.
It's kind of.
Did I get it wrong?
It's just like,
I just thought you'd like
Paul McGregor did this and he wasn't particularly good at that, and then
snarky.
And then he tried his hand at this and wasn't particularly good at that, and then does this, and then
Sounds like your dad wrote it.
yeah.
It always makes me smile when somebody says something about a footballer, like somebody's put a name up like blah blah blah, and they'll go, yeah, but he wasn't that good, was he? And you go, well, mate, Dave, whoever you are from Bulwell, you are not that good either. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was myself, do you ever got any kind of sort of self-awareness when you go, yeah, but he couldn't spray the ball 40 yards? Well, could you, pal? Do you know what I mean? But, I suppose that's been a football. I get it. That's what
it's a
people
funny
do.
one, and
but it is a funny one. Especially if you're on the end. I always get classic when every so often someone will say to me, yeah, why didn't you put the second European Cup run in the film? I'm like, well, I'm out of time, hour and a half. There's no story in repetition, as Shakespeare said. So I didn't really want to go down that route again because I've just been in a load more football matches and they won it again. Oh, well, I would have. Oh, well, that's good
Would
to know.
you?
Pal.
That's so true.
Fantastic.
That's so weird.
Well done.
I had someone in Edinburgh this year go, you didn't do any jokes about the Lib Dems. I was like, firstly, why would I? And secondly, is that what you come away from going, I wish they'd have done this?
Yeah, the classic.
Such odd psychology.
I had a guy wait up for me for ages. Matt Appleby was there. Ages in when we had the event in the Contemporary Gallery. And I could see he wanted to tell me something. He went, I watched your film. I went, oh, nice one. He went, one criticism, do you mind? I was like, no, what is it? He went, why didn't you use We Are the Champions by Queen?
What?
Yeah. So I went, well, I had the disco feel and all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, that's what she said to him. What was, well, I've done a bit of DJ myself and I would have used We Are the Champions.
Okay.
Went, brilliant.
Everyone uses We Are the Champions. It's like the most cliched thing to do.
I know. But what are you going to do? You've done a bit of DJing.
Cut to us winning the league and playing We Are the Champions on the last game.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Which
my next film, actually, is coming.
Actually quite a good idea.
Yeah. Thank you, Barry.
It's when people say, I've seen it, and then they don't offer any opinion. The guy I saw your show, you go, right?
Yeah.
And then that's it. You think, oh, God.
And the worst one is, if you've done a bit of acting, it's the worst, because somebody would recognise him, they'd go, oh, you've done a bit of acting, haven't you? And you go, yeah. And then you see the one next to them who was annoyed because you're getting a bit of attention. You can see their face and they go, well, I've never seen you. And you go, oh, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. What you been in? You think, oh,
well, Bill, Casualty.
I don't like any of that. Okay, great, yeah, great. Listen, I'm not in Coronation Street, so I don't know what else I can say to you. Do you know what I mean? But like you're saying, and that's something that's very specific to people who work in the media and footballers. If you're an electrician, nobody goes on and goes, oh, Dave, you're crap at wiring. Yeah. You know what I mean? The way you hold that screwdriver, you just still like a part. But if you're a footballer, especially, people just have this thing where they go, I'm allowed to criticise you. I'm allowed to say whatever. But my favourite thing football fans do,
they
which
do pay.
Talking about you right, I mean, they do pay. But what's brilliant is, my favourite thing football fans, I'll take this to the grave of me, the abuse they give out.
I love it when you... Yeah,
and they're allowed to do it. Sing songs about your wife and your parents and your everything, abuse. If a footballer turns around and does the shh sign, reporting him to the police. Yeah. To the stewards. It's a disgrace. He shouldn't do it. And you're a bit like, well, hang on. For an hour, you've basically been abusing him, and he turns around and does a small gesture, and
it's all they
out
want.
of order.
It's all they want.
That's so funny.
What is that about? What do you think of football fans? It's a good question. We've got a footballer here.
What
do you make of them?
You're really going to ask me that?
Yeah,
man.
Seriously, what do you think about players? What do you say in the dressing room about them?
Well, it's not a dressing room thing. I don't think it's something as a player you pay much mind to unless it's, an incident, for example, like, the recent Raheem Sterling, that would be mentioned and so on and so forth. But as I've come away from the game and I'm a bit older and everything, I mean, you'll see it if you know football to any degree. I mean, we've just had Charlie on. Charlie is a football man.
Yes.
He knows it inside and
to
out.
his bones, isn't he?
Yeah, his DNA is. it's the worst thing in the world being sat in a pub with a football fan, because I can sit and say, I've played European games, I had an 11.5-year career as a professional, I've played and scored in every division. I'm not sure about that. Matt will confirm that.
Matt probably will know.
So I know a bit about it. I learnt my game under my dad and Clough and Frank Clark and David Moyes and so on and so forth. I know a bit about the game. You be sat with someone you've only just met, and like they find out, and Dad tells everyone. So you find out, and then you're having a conversation, and you'll say something, they'll go, nah, you're wrong there. It's kind of like the whole plumber thing. Yeah. It's like me standing next to somebody. Don't think you should touch that wire, but that's the wire that does the thing. No, I just don't think you should touch it. No, you're wrong.
See, I'm totally the opposite with you, because when I'm with you, I'm like, I just want to hear.
I
just want to hear what you've got. I want to learn from you.
Yeah.
During that game, the Wednesday game earlier this season, I was just like, just tell me what's happening. It was amazing to have the insight
I was
of it.
very drunk.
What's happening? I'm starving. Yeah, but what's happening on the pitch, Paul? They're still selling them pies.
Yeah. It is. I was sat next to a Reedy game this year.
Oh, but that was amazing.
It was amazing. He said this one point. He went, I won't do his accent. Your story is all right, Dublin. But he said, there's just a bit of moisture on the pitch, Johnny. So what I would do is I'd always get that extra 1.5 yards on that. So I'd stick it just there, because I knew. And he said it would dry up. He said usually into the second half, but come back again the last 10 minutes this time of year. And I was thinking he knew that pitch.
Wow.
To the degree when he knew where the moisture was, where to stick a ball. And I thought to myself, Dave, bless him, from Bulwell, sitting in the Trent end. You have no idea.
Sorry, Dave, by the way.
There is a guy.
Please, if you are Dave from Bulwell,
please email in.
Yeah, email.
We love you, Dave.
Yeah.
I know you're a fan, but it's hard to sort of understand that what they've been through, in the sense of what they understand on the pitch, and how the nuances of how the grass and moisture is, and you're there going, stick it in the bloody net. What's the matter with you?
People don't want to wear that in a pub, though.
No.
They just want an opinion, like most people do these days.
We touched on Clough earlier, but let's properly reminisce about the great man, because we all love him. I'm very lucky to have met him a couple of times, and I treasure them. I just feel so grateful that I was able to meet him and get his autograph and have a photo with him and things like that. Your relationship with him was special, and anyway, he's Brian Clough, and you're a Forest player, and you're there for so long. What are your abiding memories of him?
They're positive, and I was there very close to him, not personally, but in a work environment.
Yes,
I would be left alone with him quite often. I'd be 3 months out of school and find myself, running a bath for him, and him telling me to get in the one next to him, and we'd have a chat.
Wow, what about?
I really can't remember. I've tried to rack my brains on this, but it happened like 3 or 4 times where, like, son, run me a bath, and I knew what that would mean, because I'd go in and Graham the
Liars.
He'd be like, oh, you want the ice? Your gaffer wants a bath, so it'd be an iced bath.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it'd be 2 tubs of Gatorade. Two Gatorade tubs full of ice.
Oh man.
Cold water. And and in he got for a good 10 minutes.
Did he talk football to you?
Just about to ask that.
Possibly. Yeah, I really can't remember. Do you know what? I think looking back, it was probably more about, he was really interested in family life.
I was going to say, he always asked people how their parents were.
At what you were like at school, things like that. He was. I always felt the value of my family. I had a younger brother, a younger sister, and a mum and dad, and very working class, like I say, from Bootle. And Clough and like Liam O'Kane and Archie and everyone that was around loved that. They loved that about me. It was a family unit. We were clearly close, and I was a good kid. I'd been brought up right. I was polite and not loud, and all the things that you'd want, really. Would he ever
talk to you about football in the sense that would he ever say, Blondie, next time you throw a goal, open up your body, and you're looking down at the ground too much, young man?
Yeah.
What tips did he give you? Are there any
Well, I'm not going to go through the stand still one, but that was the great one that I think I must have said it on this show. But
stand still.
Yeah,
I scored that goal.
Just the most bizarre thing, but just things like I remember coming in 1-0 down at half time in an FA Youth Cup game, and him coming in and just picking up a smelling salts and absolutely launching it. about 4 yards at the left back, whoever it was at the time, probably Spuggy, caught it and threw it back and throw it properly. So, and just went through the team. Like, no one was allowed to say a word. Went through the team, throwing this smelling salts at everyone. And I mean, if it hit you, it was cutting you and smashing in your face. He was throwing it. Throw it back. Never dropped one. He never dropped one. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
And then the whistle went and we went out. It focused everyone to the nth degree. It's just crazy.
And then did you win?
I think we did, yeah.
That's mental.
Lost 7-0.
I think that was...
Robbo told me one the other week. He's always got a story. He said, I'm playing somebody. I think he's playing Arsenal. And he says, I'm being man-marked. He said, and I'm aware of it. And Clough went, John.
I love this.
Bring the idiot over here. So he says, I'm looking. Bring him over here. So Robbo said, I do it. I've trotted over to the side. Come on, John. I said, I'm standing. He said, and Robbo said, I apologise to the defender because I'm a bit embarrassed. You know, he's you're not an idiot. So I'm thinking he's going to get annoyed. And he said, as I'm doing it, the gap has opened up. Woody or somebody goes into the gap and scores. And he said, Robbo said, I remember thinking, he's seen that. He's like seen it before it happened. And Robbo's theory is that in his football intelligence, as he developed it through, going to Hartlepool's, after playing Hartlepool's, and he went to Derby and he came to Forest, was so acute at that point that he knew the game so well that he could literally see things happening before anybody else could. And he was like, he was almost at the peak of his powers at that point.
Well, I refuse to believe that my standstill story is part of that. It can't be. I mean, there was literally, when he told me to stand bolt still in this game, the ball was around and going back up the other end of the pitch and coming down. I was made to look a fool, just stood still in the middle of the park, and then it comes back down, ball comes over, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go, and put it in the top corner. That's not that, is it? That's not stand still on the touchline. That's not, make sure you don't come in this dressing room unless you've got chalk on your boots as a winger.
Yeah.
And like you walk in, he'd be stood at the door like that. Make sure you got chalk on your boots because he wants width. It's not that, is it? I mean, what is that?
It's a sixth sense. And he was obsessed with the other one they always say was spreading out. And years later, Martin O'Neill was saying he was at a game and Clough was there. It was a reserve game in Stoke. And he said Clough was there. It was the only voice he could hear. And he said they were about to kick off and everybody was congregated just around the centre circle. And, look at that there. If I had a grenade now and see that, I'd kill every single one of them, right? But he said, Robert says, it's really interesting to him now that Guardiola and Klopp are obsessed with width in a game, pace, and putting the ball wide. And he was doing that 30, 40 years ago, going, get out in there. Because ultimately, if it's congested in the middle of the park, it's difficult to score and it's difficult to do things when you're playing against two banks of four. But if you're dragging them out, there's the space.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I think all the...
Was he a genius, Paul, would you say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I don't think... Is that in doubt?
No, I'm just saying it's quite interesting because you've literally, you've been in his presence. It's interesting. Everybody who's been around him says he's a genius. You know what I mean? It's hard to explain, I suppose.
Yeah, it was one of those things. A friend of mine was trying to get a visa for the US. He's a sound engineer, and I don't know if you've ever tried to do such a thing, but it was to go and work out there. And one of the prerequisites on the visa is, are you a genius? It's crazy, And I had to try and explain what it was to be a genius.
Or like an alien of extraordinary talent.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And I thought, oh, am I going to... But then, I knew that I'd spent a considerable amount of time very close to what everybody regards as true genius. I should get hold of that report somewhere, actually, because it'd probably be quite interesting. But yeah, it's that gold, isn't it? It's that thing that you can't put your finger on. It's extremely difficult to kind of discuss why somebody was a particular genius, other than the results, the cups they won. Like, explaining what it is if it was explainable, then it would be you could emulate it.
Try and replicate it.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a genius; he was genial as well, wasn't he? There was a magic about his personality, a warmth and a charisma. How does he differ? You think of all the managers you've had. I mean, is he a complete one-off in football?
Oh yeah, his presence was. I mean, it was honestly like it was like a god walking into a room, an overbearing father figure.
Did he feel like a father figure to you?
Well, I mean, I did a piece for the Bandy and Shinty. To some degree, yeah, because he's a mentor when you come out of school. Now, my dad despised him, so again, my dad doesn't like me saying this, I'm sure. But you've always got your old man around you when, if you're lucky enough, and you're going through football and everything. You've always still got him in your. But he saw me every day, and your coaches see you every day. So to some degree, they become that role.
Of course.
Now, having had a father that had a few issues like Brian and been around it at a young age, I felt uniquely in a position to kind of, I think I knew what was going on more than the other lads. I think I knew how to handle it more than the other lads. So that's where there was never any judgment from me, you know, because when it was my dad, all I wanted was to that not be the case. And, you know, you were eager for this to be over and to just go back to being a kid and a dad. So I think I had, to some degree, that relationship with him. I mean, it's funny you bring it up. I'm kind of sort of co-writing what I think could be a play. I think it's a play in my head, to some degree, where it's a. I mean, it's a great story for a young lad to come out of school, fresh out of school, and you've got this giant.
One of the most famous people in Britain at that time.
Yeah, I mean, you forget. You look at the Parkinson stuff, the Muhammad Ali. This guy was so famous. He was massive. We were aware of it coming out of school, going into, like you touched on earlier, there was no other club you wanted to go to, arguably Liverpool. But even then, Forest had the best youth team system. You know, the reserves were top of the league week in, week out. It was great. There was nowhere else you'd want to go. So you knew you were coming to play for Brian Clough and this absolute, you know, enormous team that had won European Cups. And so, yeah, you know, that the story of a kid coming out of school, fresh out of school, and then you're faced with, he's your boss.
Yeah.
When he comes in, you call him the boss or gaffer. You're like, oh, okay. And then gaining that relationship with him, but being that close to him as the empire is crumbling.
Yes.
Watching him
deteriorate.
I'm trying to be respectful here, because I would never, you know, watching him deteriorate in such a way that I was a little bit familiar with, and in such a particular way, seeing some really not very nice stuff, being around it quite often towards the end, but also witnessing, like when we won the league and we got to semi-final FA Youth Cup and all that kind of stuff, and we were a great youth side. He took us out onto the pitch at half-time, walked us around, made the other fans give us a standing ovation, walked us all the way around the pitch, put us in the centre circle, gave every one of us a hug and a big kiss, and he was crying.
Oh, man.
And so you start to see this father of sorts and this figure in my life and this other figure in my life, and there's something in there happening where I want to portray that, because I love the idea of the bath scene on a stage. It's
great. You see it as a film or a play.
Yeah. So I'm formulating this, and I've got I'm working with a writer who's a friend of mine, and I think we've got about 6,000-7,000 words.
Wow.
Knocked together.
It'll be amazing. It's such a good idea.
But I think, it's come up. But you know, I'm obviously I'm blessed to have, you know, Johnny and people like yourselves around me, and Shane possibly, who can read this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And go, oh, that's rubbish, or that's great. But I quite like the idea of it being a little bit farcical and a little bit fantastical.
Yeah, but
and
it kind
pushing
of is,
it, because I'm quite a fan of Joe Orton.
Yes.
So I can see it being a little bit off the wall, and
but it is off the wall. Yeah. It's mad.
It's crazy.
Like, you can't. Being a footballer anyway is like off the charts in terms of being able to do it as a livelihood, let alone reaching the peaks that you did. Doing it as a kid for Brian Clough must be about as bonkers as it gets.
Particularly at that time.
Of course, yeah.
And you're almost symbolic of what happened to the club. You personify what happened there. That it went from a club that were ahead of the game in all aspects, And when he went, it crumbled quite quickly. Frank really came in and gave it a go, but even Frank was very honest. It was crumbling, and he couldn't. The edifice was coming off. It was really interesting, and you know, a lot of people say this. Frank himself, if Clough had been 5-6 years younger, I've no doubt you'd have stayed at Nottingham Forest and become probably the main striker for the team. I've no doubt about that. In an environment you were really comfortable with somebody that you really respected and admired. So bless you, you were almost 5 years too late, really, and your career went in a different path because Brian Clough at that point, bless him, had finally sort of lost his magic, really, didn't he?
It did take a different path, yeah. I mean, would he have thrown me in where Frank? I mean, I owe, you know, I've spoken to the gaffer about this often. You know, I owe him an awful lot. I've got so much respect for Frank Clough, as everybody that ever meets him does. A great man, fantastic manager, great coach, gave me a chance. But you know, when you chat to him, he brought in Stan, for crying out loud. It was Brian Roy. I mean, what am I going to do? I still am of the opinion that if I'd have played, I'd have scored goals.
Yes, definitely.
And I'd have scored and scored and scored.
Well, you did.
Well, in and out, in dribs and drabs. You know, I could argue that I should have had a run, but I can also remember, you know, margins were so tight then. And my dad always raises the point of, we played at Leeds, and I got put through 1-on-1. I think it was Pressman that Wednesday. I can't remember who it was in goal. It was the big
John Lukic.
Nigel Martin.
Lukic. Yeah. So the ball's bounced in front of me, and it was a very simple lob over him, and I've passed it straight into his hands. And there was just a couple of times where I just think Robbie Fowler had buried that. You know, there was just a couple of moments where my dad, you know, honest as, would just go, if he'd have scored that, he'd been playing next game.
Yeah.
If he'd have scored that, he'd been playing next game. And I just think, yeah, you're right. But I had no time to embed. It is what it is.
But what a rush, man. I mean, I know we talk about the Lyon goal nearly every episode. But it's, oh my God, I can't... What I really struggle with is the pleasure you've given me. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've driven me as a fan to the absolute peaks of ecstasy in a way that few things in life will ever make you feel. Particularly the Lyon and the Man United goals. Like, they were incredible moments. Not just in your life, but for the 30,000 people that were there and for all the other Forest fans that weren't there.
The Lyon goal is always
given people so much.
In the top 10 Forest favourite goals ever, isn't it?
Oh, it was bonkers. I loved it. Oh, God, I remember it so vividly.
It was to do with the times as well, though, I think. You know, it always...
And the last team left in Europe, it was all that.
But it was all the music thing and the fact that, you know, I was into all that. And but I'm always... And you'll know this is genuine as well. I'm always so... utterly surprised if anyone recognises me or says anything of any worth, because I had, you know, relatively some of the people we've had in here that have had incredible careers as footballers, and particularly at Forest. It's a bit embarrassing for me sometimes to kind of...
Yeah, but they all love and know you, Macca, don't
No,
they?
but this is kind of my point. I'm really quite fondly remembered simply because of that era and that goal and what that represented. Quite often some of my friends that can be all over the world and mention Forest and mention that they know me, and someone, the lad with they remember the goal, they remember the whole Oasis thing.
I remember the Paul. First time I've seen you was a Paul Smith thing in Loaded magazine.
Dear Stalker.
Yeah, Dear Stalker.
Wow,
that was fantastic.
I think my generation really know who you are, and not just Forest fans. So like Josh Widdicombe is like your idol.
Oh my God.
He's a Plymouth fan, obviously, so that helps. But like when you talk to like 90s football, retro stuff is really taking off at the moment, and everyone remembers Paul McGregor.
Yeah.
Well, there was a time when I came out of football that I despised that, and I didn't kick a ball for 5 years, and I ran away and I toured the world for 10 years, and I didn't care, and then came back. You know, had a child, had a daughter, and started entering real life really around. I'm lucky I've had two teenage eras.
Yeah. But you love the game, Mark, don't you?
Oh, yeah, of course.
You love football, don't you?
Yeah. And I love it that much that I had to walk away from it because I couldn't have one foot in one and one foot in the other. I realised that couldn't happen, and any advice to anybody would be, I got told that often.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I can do a gig.
If a lad wanted to decide to be a rock star or a
the tension, the tension when he said that.
Yeah, and I could. I was 100% adamant I could do both. Did not know to what level you had to commit to being a proper musician and being a proper band, and went and did that and didn't kick a football at all. But then coming back and then getting into the real world and all that sort of stuff, getting pulled into this by you guys.
You made it sound like it's against your will.
But it wasn't. This is not something this is not an ambition of mine. This is not something I've ever wanted to do. Going to doing any kind of media or talking any of this or any of that. It doesn't interest me. There are people with much better opinions, Charlie being one, about football, and they know the game intimately. But what's been really lovely has been, since coming back, and being of a certain age and getting invited to the clubs, back to the clubs and everything. I'm of an age now where I can relax and go, that was pretty cool what I did for a while. I enjoyed that. That was, and you can look back and not in any kind of, I wish I had it back, or longing way, or playing on it, or
at peace with it, really.
At peace with it, yeah.
I'm quite proud of this. I took Macca to his first ever Forest game since he'd played for him.
Wow.
It was the first game of the season. It was Pierce's first game.
Yeah.
And we went down with Dave Wheat, and I don't want to embarrass him,
Blackpool.
but he was nervous. He didn't. That was at Forest Blackpool,
Yeah.
and they won 1-0, 2-0. And I remember going to the game with him. He was nervous, and I was like, you'll be fine, mate. And we got there, and it was such a lovely thing. He said nobody will remember me yesterday. We sat at the table for Macca, and they'd made beer mats with his face on it.
Amazing.
And everybody was, from Ben White to every the club was going, Macca, you have to come back more. And you left going, that was great, because you didn't expect that. But it was amazing how much affection everybody had for you there. Amazing for me to walk through with you, and everybody in the club go, hey, Macca, you need to be here more. Do you know what I mean? It was great.
It was nice. It was nice.
We had a long night that night, didn't we? His wife has never forgiven me.
I don't think
we didn't get in until 6 o'clock the next morning, did we?
My God.
That's true. We went to a match. We got in the next morning.
Well,
she weren't happy, was she?
To this day, if she always asks, is Johnny going to be there?
It's been a real pleasure. Paul, it's always a pleasure serving alongside you. But
thank you for having me, and thank you for having me as a host. I absolutely love it. It's been amazing speaking to all these great players over the years and falling back in love with this incredible club, and getting to know you has been awesome.
I love you, man.
And also a massive Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, all our listeners, especially Dave from Bulwell.
Dave from Bulwell. This has been in your honour. If you are a Dave and you live in Bulwell,
there'll be about 300 now.
Email us rrd1865 at outlook.com. Tweet us at rrd1865.
Tell me your thoughts on the game and the podcast.
Tell us your thoughts of your view. But thank you so much for downloading this. Hope you have a successful, safe and prosperous new year, and we'll be back in a few weeks.
Here.
You Reds.